welcome, welcome, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between. Jackie's got a sports show. You were tuning into that sports show. What'd y'all do this weekend? How was your weekend? How was the sports weekend for you? I'll tell you. I work on the weekends, right? My work, I can prop my phone up allegedly, in case anybody in the higher ups listens to this. Allegedly, that's my dog Maybell, by the way. Allegedly, I can prop my phone up and watch stuff while I work. And I've been watching a lot of sports documentaries recently because I have HBO Max. I have it because of my phone provider, and they have some really good sports documentaries. I don't know if you've ever watched a HBO sports documentary. They are really, really solid. I watched an Andre the Giant one that was really good, and I keep forgetting his name. Real Italian name, linebacker for the Dolphins, number 85, captain of the no-name defense. Really, really phenomenal story. And I won't spoil anything about it because it has a lot of twists and turns where you're like, oh man. And then a lot of twists and turns where you're like, yeah, go get it, brother. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great documentary, and it made me feel inspired. It made me feel sad, and showed you the life of a man's man who learned empathy, and there's a lot to take away by that documentary. And it's called The Life and Times, I think, of Nico Bucati or something like that. It's real Italian. It's real Italian. But, just letting you know, maybe some watch things that y'all might be interested in. The Andre the Giant documentary, if I don't think I've ever said it on the podcast, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not a big wrestling fan, and I guess I'm gonna say this on here. I'm probably gonna make a video about it tomorrow on TikTok. I'm not a big wrestling fan, and I've slowly realized that I can't sit down and watch Raw or SmackDown or AEW or Impact or whatever. I can't watch a full show because a mediocre wrestling match or an okay wrestling match, I guess that's the same thing, is not that great. That's my other dog, Opie, if you saw him. It's not that great, but a really good wrestling match. I have my top 5 that I go back to and watch all the time. The Fatal 4-Way between Brock Lesnar and the 3 members of the Shield. Shinsuke Nakamura, Sami Zayn, I believe NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. John Cena Rock 2, Jeff Hardy Undertaker for the undisputed WWE title back in 2003, TLC 2. There are matches I go back to that are phenomenal matches that I love dearly. But watching an entire show just is not the move. I say all that just to give background on the kind of wrestling fan I am. And I'm fascinated with the history of wrestling, and this is a tangent to go on. I'm fascinated with the history of wrestling just because these guys were a bunch of carnies that had to pretend to be tough guys. Well, pretend to be. They were very tough men. And to hear the stories of the drinking and the partying and the overall even the scumbag parts that a lot of wrestlers were. It's just a fascinating world to delve into. And, Dark Side of the Ring is one of my favorite docuseries out there. If I'll watch a docuseries, if you tell me hey, let's sit down and watch a docuseries, I'm going to try to convince you to watch Dark Side of the Ring. That stuff is so fascinating to me. And that's why Andre the Giant was fascinating. And Andre the Giant wasn't some scumbag, wife-beating, go after the high school girls dipshit, right? I'm trying to cut down on my cursing, y'all know that. He wasn't that. He was an amazing dude. And just the stories everybody had of the kind of man Andre was, it was fun to listen to. If you're not a wrestling fan, if you're a wrestling fan, you'll absolutely love the documentary. If you're not a wrestling fan, you know of Andre the Giant, probably. If you've watched like The Princess Bride, you know of Andre the Giant, and I highly recommend it. But that's a lot. That's a it's a lot to the intro of the show. The one thing I will say in terms of like house cleaning is, like, rate, and share. As always, like, rate, and share wherever you can. Trying to get the show to as many sweet little ears as like, oh, gross. As many ears as I can, as many watchers as I can. Really trying to make this work. Really grinding my butt off. Still working on the work ethic a little bit, but really grinding my butt off to make this a good show. So, like, rate, and share. If you're at work, if you're at school, church, if you're at a random gas station, this guy's like, you see the Knicks game? It's like, nah, but Jackie's got a sports show and Jackie talked about it on that sports show. You just tune into that sports show and then hop in your car and drive away. So let's go over the football weekend. Some college football, some NFL. And I want to talk about the Alabama LSU game. Alabama beat LSU, pulled away at the end of it. Now, I said in the prediction podcast that Bama wouldn't be able to beat LSU because Bama doesn't have an explosive offense, and it felt like you needed that to beat LSU. Sorry. And I don't want to say that Alabama doesn't have they don't have an explosive offense, but Jalen Milroe is becoming better and better and better every single week, and he is really leading that offense to some good things. And the defense is still an Alabama defense. It's not an all-time Alabama defense. It's not like a mid 2010s Alabama defense, but it's still an Alabama defense. And Bama beating LSU puts some scary scenarios, like has kicked off some scary scenarios in the college football playoffs. Why? So now with Alabama beating LSU, and say that Georgia makes it through Missouri. Do they play Missouri? No. No, Tennessee plays Missouri next week. But, Georgia makes it through next week, makes it through Tennessee, and goes undefeated to the SEC championship, and Bama makes it to the SEC championship. It's looking like it's going to be Bama and Georgia again for the SEC championship. And why that is scary is, let's say Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship, which is a very real possibility. It's a real possibility. Alabama's getting into the college football playoffs, no doubt. But do you really trust this committee? What? We'll call it the committee. Do you really trust this committee to drop Georgia out of the college football rankings? College football playoffs. Do you trust them to drop them out? If Washington wins the Pac-12 championship, and even something that's more likely to happen, Washington and Oregon went out, meet in the Pac-12 championship, and Oregon beats Washington, and now you have a one-loss Oregon team that should be in the playoffs, but you also have a one-loss Georgia team in a system that really favors the SEC, that, they just lost by like 3 in the SEC championship. They're obviously one of the best teams in college football, so let's put them in there. I fear for two SEC teams winding up in the college football playoffs. I fear for it. One spot's going to open up anyway because Michigan and Ohio State are going to play each other, and whoever loses, especially if Ohio State loses, they're dropping out of the top 4, so a spot's going to open up regardless. I guess that's a real conversation. So if everything goes to plan, it would probably be Alabama, Michigan, and Florida State in the college football playoffs. Oh, yeah, yep. And then you're battling for that last spot. And I do not trust this committee to not put Georgia in there. And I made this point, and I'm going to try not to get too angry on this. I made a video about this expressing my fear for this, and I got so many comments. Well, the SEC, it's the strongest conference in the country, so why wouldn't there be 2 teams in the college football? The SEC is not the strongest conference in the country. It's not. Let me whisper it in your ear so I don't shout because it's 2 in the morning. The SEC is not the strongest conference in college football. Well, national championships. That's what everybody says. Well, national championships. Alabama and Georgia have won national championships in the past 10 years. Alabama and Georgia. That's it. It's been mostly Alabama. And let me make this point before I go on to that. The SEC went 4-3 in bowl games last year. 4-3. 4-3. And people are going to still convince you that the SEC is miles ahead of everybody. The mid-pack SEC teams would run every other conference. That's what they want to tell you. They want to tell you that the SEC is some big powerhouse. No, it's not. It's not. It's just objectively not. If it was, they wouldn't be touchable in bowl games. And you could say, like, oh, everybody sits out bowl games now. That is the hardest evidence we have as to which conference lines up against each other is the bowl games. And if the SEC is such a powerful conference where motherfuckers will I'm trying not to cuss, where people will try to convince you that the reason that college football is so good is because the regular season matters. No, it doesn't. Because Alabama could schedule Citadel all year. Alabama could schedule Citadel, New Mexico State, and Louisiana Lafayette. They could schedule those three, but because they play Tennessee and Texas A&M, because they play those every year, it's like, oh, they still play SEC. Those teams suck. They suck. You want to convince me that the regular season matters, but when someone like Cincinnati goes undefeated, wins their conference championship, has multiple top 25 wins, including a top 10 win, beating Notre Dame that year, and you put them in just because everybody else lost, it took so much for Cincinnati to get into the college football playoffs. The national championship is called the national championship, not the Power 5 championship, the national championship. If regular season matters, there's no real reason why Cincinnati should have been ranked 4 in the country. There's just not. If regular season mattered, Alabama scheduling a cupcake schedule and then getting away with, oh, well, they play the SEC when I can show you that the SEC is so overrated. It is stupidly overrated. It is not some powerhouse that runs the country. Well, national championships the past 10 years. Alabama and Georgia, because you let them get away with making cupcake schedules and saying, well, they play in the SEC. 4-3 in bowl games last year. 4-3. Barely over 500. What are we talking about? Regular season matters is the biggest lie that college football fans try to push. The regular season does not matter. It does not matter. If it mattered, you wouldn't let Alabama get away with scheduling the teams that they do. You wouldn't let them get away with it. And I know. Well, they play in the SEC, and the SEC is so hard. 4-3 in bowl games. 4-3. And please tell me, what, Tennessee has been good 2-3 times in the past 15 years? Tennessee has been like a decent team. Texas A&M has been good once, maybe twice. And those are the teams that Alabama plays every year where you're like, oh, it's such a rough schedule. No, it's not. It's not. It's really, the government should sit back and should really, they tried LSD and shock therapy for mind control. Just study what the NCAA did to convince people that the SEC is some stupid powerhouse that we got to let whatever team in the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 10, the Big 12. It's not a free ticket into the playoffs for the two teams who compete in the conference championship. It is for the SEC, though. Is that valid? No, it's not. And stop looking through the SEC lens, dude. You're a Georgia fan and you want to buff up the SEC? Cool. But this is why the 4-team playoff was always such a bad idea. I don't get how you have a league. Youth football has a coherent playoff. Youth football, high school football has a coherent playoff format. But we can't get one in college football until now. We let a computer decide who the two best teams were, and they threw those two together before we got a coherent playoff in college football. How hard is it to say every pack, every Power Five conference champion makes the playoffs, throw some wild cards in there, especially non-Power Five conference winners? How hard is that? No, because the NCAA managed to convince you. Like I said, the government needs to study this if they really want to get to the bottom of mind control. The NCAA wants to convince you that the only teams that deserve a playoff spot aren't teams that go undefeated, aren't teams that have ranked wins, aren't teams that look like good teams. No, it's Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, sometimes Florida State, sometimes a other random ACC team. Why? They can make money off of them. They can't make money off of Cincinnati National Championship. Are you crazy? And even for smaller, I've seen people play with the thought of Oklahoma State becoming good, and they're like, "Oh, we can't have Oklahoma State in the national championship." Yeah, because you can't make money off of them. And that's what the NCAA has convinced every college football fan. And that is why college football will never be as good as the NFL. College football will never be as good as the NFL. Why? The people running it. The people running it are so corrupt. And you've allowed them to run the sport based purely off of money. Purely off of money. And you've let them convince you that it's okay. That teams that win their conference have great resumes, go undefeated, like Cincinnati, don't deserve to be in the national playoff. Why? Well, they want to convince you that no, they're not that good of a team. Yeah, they hung around with Alabama for a little bit before. I can admit Cincinnati, they got blown out by Alabama, right? Michigan got blown out by Georgia in the same weekend. I believe the same day. Oklahoma got blown out every time they made the playoffs. Ohio State been blown out in the playoffs. But they want to convince you that Cincinnati doesn't deserve to be in there because they got blown out. You let a non-power 5 school in, they're going to get blown out. No, don't look at Michigan getting blown out. Don't look at TCU getting blown out. Don't look at Oklahoma getting blown out. Don't look at those. What are you doing? Don't look at Clemson getting blown out. Don't look at Alabama themselves getting blown out. Don't look at any of that. No. The non-power 5 team, that school got blown out. They should never touch the college football playoffs again. Why? The NCAA can't make money off of them. So they're going to tell you that, and then you're going to reciprocate it because you can't think for yourself, you mindless clown. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say about college football. I want to like college football so bad, and I've reiterated this several times this year, especially on the podcast. I really, really want to fall in love with college football. But until the NCAA is not running it, that's impossible. Multiple people have made videos talking about how much better college football is than the NFL, and it's fun to watch. And you're not going to get the same stadium experience at a big college game than you won't get that in the NFL. There's a reason Joe Burrow said that Arrowhead doesn't compare to LSU or Alabama or even Auburn. It's just different. But until the NCAA is not running college football, it's just not going to be better. It's not going to be better because it's frustrating. So let's talk about some things that caught my eye yesterday in the NFL. The Chiefs beat the Dolphins 21-14 in Germany, in which I don't know what the Germans paid the NFL, but it ended up not being a great game. But to get this high level, high hyped game, the Chiefs and the Dolphins, possible AFC championship matchup. I don't think it will be, but possible AFC championship matchup in Germany where the rest of us have to watch it at 8:30 in the morning. Crazy. The fleecing that the German people just put on America. Yeah, they've had some practice. The Chiefs beat the Dolphins 21-14, going up 21-0 at one point. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like I watched the game. I didn't. I work overnights. I get home at 7 o'clock. I sleep and I wake up at 10 o'clock and take the lady to work. But this doesn't really shock me. Now, I said in the prediction video that travel means a lot. Miami got there on Tuesday. Kansas City got there on Friday. Thought that would play a big part. Apparently it didn't because the Dolphins were asleep most of the game. It's just I can't. The problem is I don't know how much validity to put into this because they went all the way to Germany to play a football game. So jet lag and being in a new place and no real home away dynamic. I don't know how much validity to put in the performances of these two teams, but it does confirm that I don't think the Dolphins are a real contender just yet. I think they're on their way. I think they have some good building blocks, but I don't think that they're Super Bowl contenders yet. A lot of people are like, oh, the dream matchup for this year's Super Bowl would be the 49ers and Dolphins. No, it wouldn't be. The 49ers would walk all over the Dolphins. Why? The Dolphins don't have a great defense. The 49ers would go by 3 possessions and the Dolphins wouldn't be able to do anything. It'd be horrible. But that's all I really got to say. Like I said, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I watched the game. I don't know how much validity to put into these performances. I'm just telling you the bias I have, and seeing the score and watching some of the highlights kind of confirms that bias. The Ravens beat the Seahawks 37-3, and I got to shout out my boy Champ Pryor on TikTok. Go give him a follow. He has been hoisting this Baltimore Ravens defense up for the past couple weeks, saying it's, top 3 in the NFL. And I was kind of like rolling my eyes. And, you don't really trust the Ravens after what they've been through since Lamar's MVP season. But this is 2 times in 3 weeks that they've held good offenses to under 10 points. They held Seattle to 3, and then a couple of weeks ago, they held the Lions to 6. All the while scoring 37 points. This Ravens team is scary, dude. If this Raven team stays healthy, this Ravens team is built for, late in the year football. A lot of people love to say that. A lot of teams like to be flashy in the beginning of the football season. But when it comes down to the real gritty, real football, the real man football in December and January, and the Ravens are built for it, dude. The Ravens are built for it. Now, their playoff performances leave a lot to be desired. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, in the AFC, if you look around and you're like, what is the team that is most likely to win a Super Bowl? I would say the Ravens. Now, let's go to a story that caught my eye. CJ Stroud beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 39-37 while putting up 470 yards and I believe 5 touchdowns. CJ Stroud is the best rookie quarterback in the NFL and a top 10 quarterback right now. I had someone come in my comments when I mentioned this in the Texans video I made saying, "Oh, you're really glazing him over one game." He's been doing this all season. For those of you who haven't kept up with the Texans, which I get it, it's the Texans. CJ Stroud has been doing this, putting up not these insane numbers, putting this kind of product onto the field all season. All season. CJ Stroud is going to be very good for a very long time. And I hate it. I hate it so much. If you were to ask me, which team do I hate the most in the AFC South? A lot of Titans fans will probably tell you the Colts because Andrew Luck always beat us. We never beat Andrew Luck. We had to deal with Peyton Manning. I get it. Jaguars have been pretty much a walkover outside of 1-2 years. I hate the Texans. I hate the Texans. I hate them so much. I hated watching J.J. Watt tear through our offensive line. I hated watching, you know, Old consensual happy endings tearing us up. I hated DeAndre Hopkins tearing us up. I hated watching Cortland Finnegan get his ass handed to him by Andre Johnson. I hate the Texans. So it really sucks that it looks like they've got a borderline generational quarterback on their hands. And this point has been made a lot in terms of the AFC South. The AFC South is a bad division right now, an objectively bad division right now. However, Will Levis in Tennessee, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, and CJ Stroud in Houston, young quarterback talent in the NFL is in the AFC South. The future of the quarterback position, outside of, the no names of Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, outside of those guys, it's in the AFC South. And that's pretty cool. You got to hold on to the little wins as a guy whose team resides in the AFC South. Now let's move on to before we get into Eagles Cowboys, Josh Dobbs, Tennessee alumni. Rocky Top, you'll always be home, sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top. Woo! Rocky Top, Tennessee. I love seeing Joshua Dobbs go in, ignite a locker room, play his ass off, upsetting the Taylor Heineke-led Falcons on a very, very clutch game-winning drive. And reversing a little bit, that last drive by CJ Stroud to take the lead with like under a minute left, insane. And then I got to watch Joshua Dobbs do it at pretty much the same time. Joshua Dobbs is not the quarterback CJ Stroud is. Let's not get it twisted. But Joshua Dobbs going into Minnesota after being traded at the trade deadline, igniting that locker room, getting the win. I believe Jaron Hall got hurt, so I hope he gets healthy. But Joshua Dobbs coming in and getting the win for Minnesota after Minnesota saw their savior, saw Captain Kirk go down. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We were getting hot. We were getting hot. The Vikings were going to be back. We were going to be back in the playoff race. What are we going to do? Rocky Top, you'll always be home, sweet home to me. I just love seeing a Tennessee guy tear it up. Ever since Derek Barnett pretty much flopped, I want to see good Tennessee play. I see it in Alvin Kamara every week, but a little diversity too. I love, and if you watch Joshua Dobbs and how he interacts with his teammates and how he plays and the kind of person he is, I don't understand how you don't root for him. And that speech that came out on Twitter where Kevin O'Connell was talking to the team after the game, phenomenal, all-time stuff. I really like the Vikings, and I really wish nothing but the best for the Vikings. So let's talk Eagles Cowboys. That last 3 minutes was insane. The last 3 minutes of the Eagles Cowboys game was insane. So let's start. Before this happened, I guess, it started right there. So the Cowboys scored, missed a 2-point conversion because of Dak's big ass shoe, right? And then, you know what? I can't remember it in order. I wish I wrote it down chronologically. So we're just going to go in the last 3 minutes. Cowboys get the ball with like under a minute to go. All 3 timeouts, they spend them. And the Eagles get bailed out. The Eagles got bailed out 3 times. 3 times. Not by the refs. I said that in my TikTok as a little bait to get more interactions. They got bailed out by Lady Luck, dude. DeAndre Swift fumbled the football. 3 Cowboys players jumped on top of it, and they didn't get it. And he fumbled the football like the 29-yard line with under a minute to go, and the Cowboys with 1 timeout. No. Yeah, it would have been the Cowboys ball, 29-yard line of the Eagles, 1 timeout, Game's over. Game's over, dude. But the Eagles managed to recover it. That was bailed out. When the Cowboys scored that touchdown and they needed a 2-point conversion to make it a field goal game, Dak's big ass shoe, stepped out of bounds before he could cross the goal line. Lucky. And fourth down, Cowboys trying to score a touchdown, and the tight end does not reach across the goal line and gets called short. And what a lot of people are saying controversial, I can't really speak to it. I'm gonna have because I realized I missed the possible targeting call in the Bama game. Quick little side note: I just realized I missed the possible targeting call that really angered me in the Alabama LSU game. I don't know if it would have changed anything, but the Alabama LSU game, I think I'm gonna have a segment tomorrow where I just talk about refereeing again. But the tight end does not reach across, and the Cowboys don't get the touchdown, turn the ball over. Lady Luck, 3 times, bailed the Eagles out. Eagles punt the ball away. Cowboys get the ball with like 46 seconds left at their own like 14. Dak Prescott throws a lob to Michael Gallup. Defensive pass interference. Right call. Ball gets at the 50 with just under 40 seconds left. And then he throws it out to the tight end. Tight end gets out of bounds, roughing the passer. So now they have it at like the 32. And then little, crossing route to CeeDee Lamb, who's wide open, who the Philadelphia Eagles corner just doesn't do anything. CeeDee Lamb takes it down to the 14, I believe. And then Dak Prescott gets sacked because the Cowboys' offensive line was having troubles with the Eagles' defensive line the entire game. And then the Cowboys run a fake spike, pretty much a fake spike, and chuck it to the end zone. 5 seconds left, third down, end of game. Dak Prescott throws it to CeeDee Lamb, couple inches short, or no, like a couple of yards short of the goal line. Eagles win. Insane end to the game. Absolutely insane end to the game. The Eagles got bailed out by Lady Luck, and then they committed stupid penalties that pretty much was handing the Dallas Cowboys the game, and the Dallas Cowboys just the offensive line completely sold. That's all you can say. The offensive line completely sold. I want to say I saw someone on TikTok say that the Eagles are the only elite team in the country. I don't see that. If you look at their record, they're 8-1, and it takes a really good team to be 8-1. I'm not going to dispute that. The Eagles are a really good team. However, they're not they're not elite. They're barely escaping games that they should handle. Jalen Hurts is not playing phenomenal football. Their defense is not playing phenomenal football either. They have a great front seven. Past that, they're fine, but they let up a lot. The Eagles are not an elite team, and they might be the favorites to make it out the NFC, but I don't know. The Cowboys showed 1 or 2 plays. Someone tried to tell me that the Cowboys are not on the same level as the Eagles. I don't know how you can watch this game and come away with that conclusion. 2 plays, 2 plays go the Cowboys' way. The touchdown, that tight end touchdown, puts them ahead, I believe. That tight end touchdown, that 2-point conversion where all they need is a field goal. Now you're in overtime and the Cowboys have full momentum. I don't think the Eagles go into Jerry's World and beat the Cowboys. I don't know. I just don't see the Eagles as elite. Maybe they're favorites in the NFC. Maybe. Let's talk about Sunday Night Football. From what I can remember, and right now I can't even remember who played. Who played Sunday night? Who played last night? Oh, it was the Bengals and Bills. The Bengals won 24-18, and it just shows, again, I don't believe in the Bills. And I believe, let me look this up real quick. I don't trust the Bills. I don't trust the Bills. And I've said that on the podcast several different times. The Bills start great. They start off as a Super Bowl. Yeah, they are 5-4 right now. The Bills are 5-4. Sorry, my wife is texting me. The Bills are 5-4. They're probably going to win the AFC East because the Dolphins just aren't ready yet, and they showed that against the Bills when they played earlier in the year. But when it gets to the playoffs, do you really trust the Bills against the Ravens? Do you trust the Bills against the Chiefs? Do you trust the Bills against the Bengals? I don't. I don't. Whether it's in, I believe, whether it's in Orchard, I know it is Ralph Wilson Stadium, but I don't know if it's if it's still named that. Whether it's there, whether it's in Arrowhead or in M&T Bank or in Cincinnati, I don't I don't trust the Bills. The Bills are not Super Bowl contenders. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's, a lot of season." It's a bad take. It's a lot of season. They're not. They're not. And I'm gonna stop repeating myself. The Buffalo Bills are not Super Bowl contenders. They haven't been since they lost in Arrowhead. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Jackie's Got a Sports Show. Follow me on Twitter at JJester615. Follow me on TikTok at Jackie Boy Sports. Views are killing it, growing a lot. It really, really helps. It feels good. It feels good to grow a lot. It feels good to kill it in views. I'm going to try to do a lot more lives, especially a lot more lives with people. Going to try to get guests on this podcast very soon. Email me questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want. oldjackieboy1021 at gmail.com. I love you, face. Make sure to like, rate, and share. Like I said, work, random man on the gas station. Yeah, just random man sitting on top of the gas station having a little party. Work, school, wherever. Tell people, hey, Jackie's got a sports show. Make sure you tune into that sports show because Jackie does have a sports show and you just tuned in to that sports show. Thank you very much.